Have you ever really thought about what retirement might actually look like for you?
Yeah.
I mean, you have enough money to actually enjoy it, after working for decades?
It's something that we all think about.
Definitely. And that's why we're here. This is the FBS podcast. It's from the Forest Business School, and it's specifically designed to help people in the forest products industry,
Right.
to help people like you figure out retirement planning and really achieve your professional goals. So today we're going to do something a little different.
Okay.
We're going to deep dive into this book, Afterwood, Roots to Retirement.
Okay.
And we're going to focus on this case study of Todd.
Okay.
He is a logger in his mid-50s, and he's been thinking about retirement for a while now.
Uh-huh.
And he's done a really good job of building some solid assets over his career.
So what does he have going for him?
Well, he owns this really successful logging business.
Okay.
He's got a paid-off home and shop, a good amount of savings, a traditional IRA, and he even owns a 160-acre woodlot.
Wow. Yeah, that sounds like he's in a pretty good spot.
You would think so.
Yeah.
So Todd's initial plan was to just sell his business and his timber, rely on Social Security, and then just use his savings to live on. And to figure out how much money he actually needed to retire, he used something called the Rule of 25.
Oh, yeah.
Have you heard of that?
Absolutely, yeah.
It's a pretty popular rule of thumb when you're trying to plan for your retirement.
Yeah, pretty common.
The basic idea is that you should aim to have 25 times your annual expenses saved up by the time you want to retire.
Exactly.
And then, in theory, you could withdraw about 4% of your savings each year and not run out of money.
Right. Ideally.
So that means that if Todd wanted to have $50,000 per year to live on in retirement,
Yeah.
he would need to have $1.25 million saved up. Right.
Yeah, exactly. That's the gist of it.
So it's a good starting point.
Yeah, it's a simplified calculation, but it's helpful. I mean, it's not perfect.
Yeah.
It definitely has some limitations. I mean, it assumes you're going to have a consistent rate of return on your investments.
Which we know is not always the case.
Right, yeah. And it doesn't fully account for inflation or any unexpected expenses that might come up.
Like a medical emergency.
Exactly, yeah.
So when Todd did his calculations using the Rule of 25,
Yeah.
he determined that he needed to have a retirement fund of about $1 million.
Okay.
But when he actually looked at all of his assets and his projected income, he realized that he was coming up a bit short.
Oh, how short?
Like $115,000 short.
Wow, that's a pretty big gap.
It is. I mean, for him, this was a big wake-up call. He realized that he needed a more strategic approach
Yeah.
if he wanted to really achieve the retirement that he was envisioning.
Makes sense. So what did he do?
Well, he did what a lot of people do when they're faced with a difficult financial situation like this. He went and sought guidance from a financial planner.
Smart.
Yeah.
Did he go to like a regular financial planner every year?
Well, he specifically looked for somebody that was experienced in working with people in the forest products industry.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think that was probably a pretty pivotal decision.
Definitely. Yeah, somebody who understands the specific ins and outs of that industry would be incredibly valuable.
Yeah, somebody who understands timber prices, they go up and down.
Yeah.
And the tax implications of selling your timber.
Yeah.
All kinds of things that wouldn't really be relevant to people in other professions.
Right. Yeah.
So what kinds of things did they talk about? What strategies?
Well, they started by looking at Todd's existing IRA.
Okay.
And they talked about, maximizing his contributions to his traditional IRA.
Right, to take advantage of those tax advantages.
Exactly, yeah. And then they also talked about the possibility of setting up a SEP IRA.
A SEP IRA? What's that?
Yeah.
How is that different from a traditional IRA?
So a SEP IRA, it stands for a Simplified Employee Pension Individual Retirement Account. But mouthful, I know. But it's basically a retirement plan that's designed for self-employed people and small business owners.
Okay, so perfect for somebody like Todd.
Exactly, yeah. So like a traditional IRA, contributions to a SEP IRA are tax deductible.
Okay.
And the earnings grow tax deferred until you retire.
Okay.
But the main advantage with a SEP IRA is that it allows for much larger contributions compared to a traditional IRA.
Gotcha. So for Todd, who owns his own business, it makes sense.
Yeah.
It could be a good way to shield more of his income from taxes while still saving for retirement.
Exactly.
So did they explore any other options?
They did, yeah. They also discussed the timing of his timber harvest.
Okay.
So Todd's plan was to harvest the timber on his woodlot when he retired, and then use those proceeds to add to his retirement income.
Right.
But they started to think about, well, could changing the timeline actually be beneficial?
That's interesting. It kind of reminds me of how foresters manage their forests for the long term, right? Sometimes delaying a harvest can give you a greater return down the line. I wonder if the same principle could apply to retirement planning.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about that long-term vision. You manage a forest for sustainability, and you manage your finances for the long haul, too.
Make sense?
But sometimes life throws you a curveball.
Uh-oh.
And in the case of Todd's woodlot, an unexpected threat emerged that forced him to rethink everything.
Oh, no. What happened?
His woodlot was hit by the emerald ash borer.
Oh, no, that's bad.
Yeah. And this invasive insect can really devastate ash trees. And Todd knew that he had to act fast to salvage as much value from those trees as possible.
So what did he do?
Well, that's a story for part 2.
Oh, man, that's a cliffhanger. Well, listeners, we're going to have to take a break right now. Make sure you come back for part 2 because we'll find out what happened to Todd and his ash trees.
And how he adapted his retirement plan to deal with this new challenge. It's going to be good.
Welcome back to the FPS podcast, where we're deep diving into this idea of retirement planning.
Yep.
And we're looking at this logger, Todd,
Right?
who's working on putting together his retirement plan. And in the last part, we learned that he's got a pretty big gap between what he needs and what he thinks he'll have.
Right, about $115,000 short.
Yeah. And he and his financial planner are exploring all these different options.
Boosting his traditional IRA, maybe setting up a SEP IRA, and then, bam.
Emerald ash borer.
That's right.
So it's a classic example of how life doesn't always go according to plan.
Yeah, stuff happens, especially with long-term goals like retirement.
Exactly. But I think it's also a good reminder that, if you have the right mindset, you can turn a setback into an opportunity.
Yeah.
So how did Todd handle this?
Well, remember, he'd initially planned to wait and harvest the timber on his woodlot when he retired. But with the emerald ash borer spreading, he knew he couldn't afford to wait that long.
Right, those trees would lose their value.
Exactly, and the market for that ash timber could just dry up.
Yeah, it's a tough spot.
Yeah.
So what did he end up doing?
He decided to accelerate the harvest.
Yeah.
Now, this could have been a huge financial blow,
Yeah.
but instead of, hiring out the logging, he decided to do the work himself.
Oh, smart.
Yeah, so he saved on the cost,
Uh-huh.
and he was able to keep control over the whole operation.
So he basically turned a potential loss into a source of income.
Yeah, pretty resourceful, huh?
Yeah, but I imagine that was a lot of work for him.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm sure it meant working longer hours and making some tough choices about what to prioritize.
Yeah.
But it let him really maximize the value he could get from his woodlot.
So we were talking earlier about how he was looking into a SEP IRA.
Right?
Did he end up scrapping that plan?
Actually, no. The early timber harvest ended up being a perfect opportunity for the SEP IRA.
Really? How so?
Well, remember, with a SEP IRA, you can put in much bigger contributions than you can with a traditional IRA. So that income from the timber sale gave Todd a big chunk of money that he could then put right into that SEP IRA.
Oh, I see. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So he was actually able to really boost his retirement savings
Mm-hmm.
in a way that he wouldn't have been able to if he'd waited.
It's kind of amazing how he was able to adapt
Right.
to a tough situation.
Yeah.
It's really about being flexible when you're planning for retirement, isn't it?
It is. It's not about, knowing exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's about being ready to adjust your plans as you go.
So by harvesting his timber early and putting that money into the SEP IRA, he was able to turn a challenge into something that could really help him reach his retirement goals.
Exactly.
But did it? Did he actually get to that $1 million mark?
Well, for that, you'll have to wait for part 3.
Oh, man, another cliffhanger. All right, listeners, we're going to take another quick break, and then we'll come back for the final part and see if Todd reached his retirement goal. So stay with us. All right, so we're back, and we're talking about Todd.
Right.
And his $1 million retirement goal.
Yep.
So we left off with him having to harvest his timber early.
Right, because of that emerald ash borer.
Yeah, and he ended up putting a lot of that money into his SEP IRA.
Right, he was able to make some pretty significant contributions over a 4-year period.
So did that get him to his goal?
Well, let's take a look. So his traditional IRA is projected to be around $148,000 when he retires.
Okay.
And then he's got about $262,000 in savings.
All right.
And he's expecting to get around $275,000 from selling his logging equipment.
Okay, and what about the SEP IRA?
Ah, yes.
The SEP IRA.
I mean, that's a big one, right?
Right. So even with a conservative estimated return of like 6% per year, his SEP IRA is projected to grow to about $321,000 by the time he retires.
Okay, so let's add all that up.
So we got $148,000 from the traditional IRA.
Yep.
$262,000 from savings,
Uh-huh.
$275,000 from selling his equipment,
Yes.
and $321,000 from the SEP IRA.
Drum roll, please.
What's the total?
$1,006,000.
He did it.
He did it.
That's amazing.
It's really impressive, right?
It really is.
I mean, it shows that being proactive
Mhm.
and willing to adapt to challenges can make a huge difference.
And he turned a tough situation into something positive.
He did. That emerald ash borer, it was a curveball for sure,
Yeah.
but it forced him to make a change
Huh?
that actually ended up helping him
Yeah. It's like that saying, when life gives you lemons.
make lemonade.
Exactly. So I think this is a great reminder that retirement planning isn't really about predicting the future.
Right.
It's about making smart decisions and being ready to adapt.
Yeah, having a solid plan
Yeah.
and being open to adjusting it when you need to.
So for anybody out there who might be listening and feeling a little bit overwhelmed by this whole retirement thing, what's like the most important first step they could take?
I think the most important thing is just to start thinking about your goals.
Okay.
Like, what do you actually want your retirement to look like? Once you have a vision,
Yeah.
then you can work backwards
Yeah.
and create a plan to get there.
That's great advice. And, Todd's story shows that it's never too late to make adjustments to your plan.
Absolutely. And for folks in the forest products industry, if you want more examples and strategies, you should check out the book we've been talking about, After Wood, Routes to Retirement.
Yeah, it's full of really great insights that are specific to our industry. So thanks for joining us on this deep dive into retirement planning. We hope you found it helpful.
Yeah, we hope it gave you some ideas.
And remember, you can enjoy your retirement
Yeah.
and do it confidently.
You got this.
Hey, this is Steve Bick with the Forest Business School. Thanks for listening to the FBS podcast, and I hope you will subscribe. The truth is, these deep dives barely scratch the surface of some of the topics we cover in the Forest Business School programs, and the podcast is a way of reaching a wider audience. Check out my website at vtfbs.com for more information. Reach out if you want to talk about one of the FBS programs or have custom training or project needs that you'd like to discuss. Again, thanks for listening to the FBS podcast.